All right, Vinny Melkus Outdoors. Get up here. We got some more schedules that've come out, and my lighting sucks. But we're gonna talk about those, specifically the Toyota series in particular, because that's a good, one of the major events. It's along the lines of the Open, gives a person a chance to qualify for a number of different either tours or events or whatnot, and some decent money if you get enough participants. And it's a significantly, you know, large entry fee. It's whatever it is, $1,800. And of note of that, the BFLs are also another good local tournament, and they went up like $20 to 220, but still reasonable comparatively to everything else, and for what you can qualify for, and blah blah, blah, staying local. But first, let's talk about what happened at the Red River this weekend, because it's interesting. Keith Poche pulled it off at the Red River, and I haven't talked about a lot of tournaments because there's it's whatever. I'm sure there's a lot of people that talk about them. This one's of particular interest because of how Keith Poche won the tournament, or not necessarily the lure he won, but what he was doing to get to the fish that he won. And this isn't something that's happened in the past. If I remember correctly, he's done this in the past with aluminum boat, going into backwaters and making things happen. And going to places where other people are not willing to put their fiberglass boats, or maybe even their aluminum boats, getting in the skinny water and doing what needs to be done. Well, in this particular case, he was going through, and I watched if you go to his Instagram and watch a couple of his videos where he's like showing you what he's doing. In those Instagram videos, it's more showing you what people have done to him after day two. But anyway, so he's going in this really tiny canal with here. He's blasting himself in there, pulling his way in there. And granted, here, and you listen to that Instagram, he's like going off on these guys. But I guess I'll go over what happened. So he's been pulling himself in there every day. Well, I guess after day two, somebody had gone over there, or what it appears to be is somebody went over there and rolled rocks in his avenue to get into his spot. Boulders. I wouldn't say rocks. They're more boulders. They're pretty good size. They're basketball size, into a spot to try to make it so he can't get in there. Now, who did that? I don't have no idea, or if somebody even did it, or if it was just unintentional, or if it was another competitor. I'm along the lines with him, where I tend to view that as another competitor, and it goes into another aspect of the competitive fishing world, in certain circuits that aren't vetted for character on some of these people. And people are willing to do this kind of things. I remember when I was first fishing some larger events out west, one of the guys that kind of took me on his wing, he mentioned not leaving your rods on your deck. And it wasn't because, he didn't say because people would steal the rods. He told me it was because people will come by and clip your line or nick your line on purpose. And I was thinking, like, what is going on? But anyway, then other people were telling me about making, I was, watching these guys. They let me practice with them, like not showing their hands or whatever. And I was just like, well, what's this? I thought, the club that I fished with, blah, blah, they're a little more ethical than that. If they saw you fishing there, saw you practice there, and you show up there on the tournament day, they wouldn't mess with you. If they would more help you out, or not nick your line or do anything like that. But there was these unscrupulous characters at that level of the game. And granted, they're not many, in most parts are whatever the 5 to 10%, but they are there. So in the regards of Keith Poche, and he was pretty livid on there. On the Instagram. But anyway, so they rolled those rocks in there, and he was showing on day 3. He still blasted through there and got the power pulled down, and he was talking about how he does the work, and if they wanted, they could get in here and do the work too. And I could see how these tubs of lard wouldn't be willing to go pull themselves in there. You could tell Keith Poche probably hits the gym, and because he was pushing on that pole, and with that little boat. So if you have a fiberglass boat, yeah, you're not getting in there. No way. Even some aluminum boats, I don't think. It was a particular setup that he had that he could actually pull, and it was tough for him. But I was watching him. I was like, yeah, that guy, he puts in the work. and he does what needs to be done, and we should not hate for that. And if he wins the competition doing something perfectly legal, I think the way it sounded like people were accusing him of getting out of the boat, pushing himself in there, and he showed us on the video how he was doing it, push pulling, and it was tough. And some of those athletic dudes that are out there that are sucking down cheeseburgers all the time, sitting on their boats, they wouldn't be able to do this. 1, because of their equipment. 2, because it's probably way too much. 3, because they're probably not strong enough like he did. Enough of that rant on that. Anyway, he goes back there, he wins the event, but it's kind of disheartening to hear that people will go sabotage him. So let's say he was doing that anywhere and you can't. Well, you better figure something else out. You don't go over there and roll rocks to try to sabotage to make sure he can't get to his fish. Even if I was say I was second place in this event, like I don't want to beat Keith Poche without him being able to get to his fish, because I want to beat him at his best. I want to beat him. It's a chess game out there, and it's not about the money. It's nice to have the money, and you need the money, but it's about beating that other person at their best, like them thinking and being able to maneuver and be able to get to the places that they need to be, or that they think they should be, without human interference to the extent that it's another competitor sabotaging somebody against the rules. Anyway, that's my rant. Congratulations to Keith Poche for doing that, thinking outside the box, for going in that skinny water, doing not the unthinkable, but probably the improbable for most people, and pulling out a W on there. So shame on those people that would do such a thing. And I put that in the realm of even cheating on the. So if you could catch these guys, they should be banned just as much as somebody that puts weights in a fish or puts a fish in a cage. I think that's along the same lines, because it's almost a similar instance, but you're just doing it against a different competitor instead of you putting your weight. Sorry for a second here. Instead of you adding to your weight, you're essentially decreasing the your competition's weight. So I guess maybe you can argue that point, but anyway, congratulations to Keith Poche. He did a great job and putting in the real work to get it. Anyway, let's go to the schedule real quick, and if you got something to say, go and throw in the comments on that one, because that's an interesting topic, and it hits a lot of aspects of tournament fishing. Anyway, I like the Toyota series. We're going to go into the Toyota series because they have one of the reasons. Let's get in there. One, MLF has maintained this Toyota series out west. That's one of the reasons. And they have a number of different divisions that kind of encompass the entire United States to a varying degree, more so than bass for sure, which gives them a greater breadth of talent that they can raise up through and get into possibly the BT, or at least whatever the new invitationals. So when we look at these divisions, which there's a central northern plains and a southern and southwestern and western division. So there you go. That covers a great deal of the country. Now, granted, there's places that are not, but there's places that really aren't. They don't have the infrastructure for some of their fisheries and whatnot. There's some other things that go into it, but for the most part, they do the greatest amount for covering the states and having. This is like a farm team. This is like a farm team program almost. The Toyota series going up to the BPT. But anyway, start. So you get this. We'll start with the Central, which I argue, like every other bass league, that the Central is not really the Central. This would be more of an Eastern. We got Lake Guttersville, Lewis Smith or Smith Lake, and Chickamauga. Chickamauga is beat like a redhead stepchild over the last few years. We know that. Smith Lake, okay. Guttersville beat like a redhead stepchild. So I mean, those are lakes that are constantly are constantly being beaten with tournaments, but it is what it is. They're not that far from each other. If you happen to live in this area, this gives you an opportunity to compete on a top level and qualify for a number of things. The Toyota Championship, I believe they still have, and a possibility of getting into the Invitationals and possibly Red Crest. I think they changed that this year, where there's some ways to qualify for Red Crest, which is pretty awesome. So Central nothing to write home about, right? So I'm going to go to the northern. Typical, again, the Lake Champlain, which is an awesome fishery, which that's cool. I don't mind that. St. Lawrence, beat like a redhead stepchild. The smallmouth there, probably seen every lure that possibly known to man. The only saving grace on these northern fisheries, and I didn't mention this in the past videos, the only saving grace on northern fisheries when it comes to fishing pressure is typically in the wintertime, these fish get a break of a certain extent. Whereas like the Guttersville, the Chickamaugas, the Grands, they don't, because you can fish those year round. So I'll give them that. Then you got the Potomac River, which that's always kind of interesting. The Potomac River, the last few times that anybody's been there, I think Galele won it the last time there was a big event there. The Italian guy. But anyway, the Potomac River is pretty interesting. That is an interesting tournament. But so that I mean, those tournaments will be kind of fun to watch or to compete in. But they're, like I said, nothing really to write home about. I mean, going to the same place. Here we go, the Plains Division, which we typically see go to the same lakes. It seems like this year they actually went to one oddball, which is Truman. I think, Truman. They just had that. And in fact, Hunter Baumann won that one. He fished the NPFL when I was there, or I think he's still fishing it. So, good guy and pretty interesting story if you look into that. So we go into the Plains series. So they got Grand Lake in March 16th to 18th. Now, I mean, I'll just speak from experience there. That's, typically that's pre-spawn. And, I mean, they seem to hit Grand Lake about similar times of the year. Can be really iffy on that lake at that time of year. But there will be some good bags. But anyway, Grand Lake, they tend to beat that with like I said, with a stick there. Beat that dead horse. And then they're going to go to Kentucky Barkley. Which that's interesting because you don't see that many tournaments on there in April anymore. So that'll be an interesting one to watch. Then you go to Lake of the Ozarks, which has so many fish. It's incredible in the fall. And when you get into that fall, that late September, because we're right now in late September, so next year when you get into that with cool days, all of a sudden the buzzbait bite or whopper plopper, or especially buzzbait, starts kicking off. And man, that'll be a good tournament as well. So I mean, not that they're hitting. Maybe Kentucky Lake's a little different. Their winger tournament, like the Truman, so that's different. But that should be a good series. So then we go to the Southern Series, back to the Harris chain. Like I said, that chain, I don't know. Those fish have probably been hit with more weights flipping because you flip a lot, or you go hit the grass whenever they have grass, unless they, kill the grass, and then you're just flipping those reeds. And maybe throwing, depending on what time of year. But those fish probably been hit with weights. They're probably all knocked out because there's so much pressure and so many tournaments that go on the chain of lakes. Beautiful chain of lakes. It's pretty awesome. I'd like to go back, actually. It goes over my birthday. But that's where this is a southern event. So that's, I guess, this is where like the Alabama events and the South Carolina or the Georgia and stuff, that's where I picture, the southern events. But anyway, so they're in Harris Chain. Then you go to Lake Okeechobee, which Lake Okeechobee, I feel like nobody's been really hitting all that hard. I mean, they're always going to have a bunch of tournaments there, but haven't been the like huge major circuits there to the extent of these other bodies of water. So that that's cool. And there's always a chance of getting really big bags there, especially if you're hitting at that time of year. I mean, surely though in early southern Florida, there's going to be a lot of there's going to be post spawners and stuff at that time of year, but you should still have some spawners. And I mean, because they spawn a lot, I think they even start spawning in January sometimes down there. Okay, anyway, they go to Lake Eufaula, Alabama, which I've been there. That's a fun lake in May. That will be a sight fishing event more than likely if you go on the southern end of the lake. If you go to the northern end of the lake, there'll still be, but it'll be a little more dirtier water. That should be a good event. But like I said, there's nothing out of the ordinary there. But these are just good. I mean, these are just good circuits. Like I've said, all the ones I've read off. I mean, really, if you live in the area, you can compete in these reasonably. Make the drive. I mean, granted, they are a little bit of money, but this gives you an opportunity to qualify for a larger level of tournament fishing. Okay, so we go to this is Southwestern Division, which I'd argue maybe I'd call this the Central Division or the Plains Division, whatever you want, and the other, but This is just what bass fishing is. So they're in San Rayburn. Okay, we've talked about the Texas thing. Texas is the pinnacle of trophy bass fishing currently, and they should be hitting some more of these lakes, especially this will be in January. Then you go to Lake Dardanelle, which that is kind of, I mean, like I said, that's a central type reservoir. But anyway, that is kind of your oddball term. That, and I know I could have talked about this in the other divisions, but Dardanelle is kind of an opposite of San Rayburn. It's more of a kind of a river fishery, and there'll be a lot of interesting things going on there. And you're not, I mean, probably not the quality of fish as San Rayburn, but you'll have to be on your game there, and it'll be in April. Then here's where I disagree with them on. So you have all these places in Texas to go that you can have with giant fish, with access to wireless, or if you want to stream or do whatever, that has decent facilities, and they go back to Sam Rayburn in May 18th. But whatever, So if it's a Southwestern division, why don't they pick somewhere else in Texas too, or Oklahoma, or something like that? That'd still be, to me, it's the Central, but let's vary that up a little bit. And then my personal favorite, one of the reasons why I like the Toyota series in MLF, that why everything's pushing me towards the MLF now, is the Western Division. Which the Western Division in itself, hang on one second, the Western Division is they kind of go to the same lakes, it seems like, all the time, but it's because these lakes are, they're the ones that are the mainstays for the West. And if you're scheduling and you're typically a major tournament series like MLF or Bass, and you don't have a whole lot of experience out West, you want to go to the ones that you're going to get the best bang for your buck, the ones that have, have big fish, the ones that have the facilities, the ones that are set up, the ones that have a history of hosting larger tournaments. So I kind of understand that. And during my birthday here, they go to Lake Havasu, one of my favorite lakes. And there are big fish there. There's big smallmouth and there's big largemouth in there. And it is a great lake. And in fact, the last time I was there, I had a chance at being, I went there and smoked them, and I lost an engine, which cost me being at least in the top, probably a top 10 finish there for a one bass, or the U.S. Open, or not the U.S. Open, the Arizona Open. Which, anyway, Lake Havasu that time of year is one of my favorite bodies of water. It's fun. You don't know what's going to happen. If the largemouth pull up, things can get real interesting. If you get on some really good smallmouth, things get really, really interesting. You can get good bags on the very extreme ends of the lake. You can find them offshore. You can do all kinds of stuff there. It's fun, and it's a beautiful lake. The whole town's built for that lake. It's one of my go-to destinations, especially that time of year. But here's where they go to the California Deltas. Let me hold back that thought real quick. Then they go to the California Delta in May. California Delta, one of the best bass fisheries in the country. You never know what you're going to hook into. You can be hooking in 8, 9, 10 plus pounders. You could be bringing in 30-pound bags to almost 40 if you hit it just right. You can get away from people. There's all kinds of stuff. It's an amazing place. Here's where I don't know what they're thinking. So instead of going to, after this Delta event, their third event, why don't they go to a Clear Lake? Or there's other lakes there that they can have larger tournaments, a Shasta, to vary that up. I know you don't want to go to Mead right now, because Mead is pretty much dry. Well, it's not dry, but the facilities, the ability to launch 150 boats or whatever, 150 boats is precarious at best. So yeah, your options are semi-limited with the relative nature of that. But there's other places to go. The Columbia River, I know that's that'd be way up in the Northwest. There are things to do, but the more telling lake that is not there would be Clear Lake. Clear Lake is arguably the best bass fishery on a bass average in the country. But anyway, so they didn't do that. So you go back to Delta, which, I guess you really can't complain about that because Delta's so good. But you would like to see a third body water, a Clear Lake. That way you don't have, that way you get the best talent, you know what I mean? But anyway, that rounds up that whole schedule. It gives you the ability to qualify for the championship. And I believe right now they've introduced qualifying for the Red Crest and some other things as well to sweeten the pot of, doing well in the Toyota Series. I believe they still have the wild card division in this as well, so you can fish different events and different divisions. So it's not bad. I like it. And I would love to be able to fish some of these, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. If not, I'll be a spectator and watch these events and be interested to see if who qualifies for what and how these lakes are, especially the western ones. I want to see big bags in the Delta. I want to see how Havasu plays out. Havasu is one of those things that I don't know. It's a great fishery. It's one of my favorites. But anyway, I'm gonna leave you there because I think I'm at 20 minutes, which is unbelievable. I'll talk to you later. Peace.